Welcome to DJ Time's maiden voyage on Twitch. I'm the editor of the magazine, Jim Tremaine, been here since 1990, and we're very excited to start off here and with DJ Godfather. And before I introduce him to the world here, I want to just talk a little bit about Detroit and how influential the city has been to music over the years, whether Smokey Robinson, Jay Dilla, Bob Seger, Kid Rock, Iggy Pop, the White Stripes. And then when it comes to dance floor music, of course, there's techno. And then Detroit's own genre, Ghettotech. And we have one of the genre's pioneers here, Brian Jeffries, AKA DJ Godfather. Welcome aboard, Brian. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while since we usually see each other in Hart Plaza every year, and I always catch your set, which is always banging and fun, and real Detroit going on there. And we'll get to that in a minute. I want to, since we're getting to know you, as we say in the bumper, want to get into how you got started here. Detroit and DJs in Detroit are legendary. Going back years, pretty much every DJ I've ever talked to has always talked about the electrifying mojo and the wizard, Jeff Mills. Why were those guys so influential, and what did they do for you?
Yeah, when they're on the radio, I must have been, like 10, 11 years old, and that was like the only outlet when you wanted to hear like a certain kind of music, any kind of techno, craft work. I remember the first time I heard Nucleus jam on, it was on their show, and I'm a little kid, driving my mom and dad, and I'm like, turn this up.
I remember that song.
Yeah. So it's at that time, like no one was doing what they were doing, and they're very innovative. And, that's kind of like how a lot of this started was kind of from that, and I mean, it was good because they brought early techno, early house, like early electro, all this stuff to the masses, and the cool thing is it wasn't just like a techno show or a house show or an electro show. I mean, Jeff as the Wizard was mixing it all in, all in one pot, which was cool. I mean, to me, he was like the original mashup DJ,
right?
Like seriously, because I mean. At that time, that's the only place you could hear that stuff. Also, I'm 10, 11 years old at this time. So there weren't a lot of resources for me as a little kid, but
your ears were open.
That was the only time. That was the only place I've actually heard any of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And when you listen to those mixes now, you got to think about like who was doing that. It was either just a techno set or a house set, or or just early electro b-boy breakdancing set or a hip hop set. It wasn't all mixed together, and Jeff as the Wizard did a really good job of that.
So was the Nucleus track the one that really got you headed in this direction?
One of them, yeah, for sure. One of them, that and Reckless by Ice-T. That was one that did it for me. Yeah, Planet Rock, like early Prince stuff, all that stuff,
Yeah. Prince was really big in Detroit, going way back.
Yeah.
What about
for sure?
Yeah,
one of my good friends, Champ, was actually kind of him.
No kidding. Yeah, well, I'd heard stories that he had actually called into the radio station and things like that, whereas he was usually pretty nobody could really get to him, but he opened his heart for Detroit because he got picked up on the radio at a very early time, and Detroit people got hip to him very early.
Yeah, I think at that time Detroit, is definitely was a lot more open-minded than other markets. I mean, Detroit was doing its own thing, so I mean, it's just a lot of markets aren't open-minded. I mean, you go to a lot of other major cities and stuff, the radio is just, oh, well, this is what's happening now, and this is what we have to play because this is what's hot now for our listeners, blah, blah,
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of regional music out there. I mean, I grew up in Georgia, and when I moved to New York in 1990, I had literally never heard Latin freestyle in my life. Like
Oh wow, okay.
it just did not get played. In Georgia, it was all about the funk, you know, from James Brown, et cetera. And it moved on from there. Prince was big in Georgia, but I didn't
Yeah.
hear any of that stuff until I moved to New York. And then I was overwhelmed by it, of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, all that stuff was really big here in Detroit too. The Latin freestyle. I never really got into it because I don't like singing. I'm just not I don't like, I like raw, dirtier kind of sounds and vocals. And so I never really got into singing like love music kind of stuff. But if I say I don't like a certain kind of music, I still have a respect for it. And it's big, you know,
Right.
it's really big, you know. There's a lot of genres I don't like country music I hate, but I respect it. That's a big business, you know. It's just a big business. You got to respect it, you know. So
Yeah. So,
you know,
so
it's
you and
I
Kid
don't get
Rock can
into
have
that
a conversation about that.
yeah, but yeah, Latin freestyle is really big here in Detroit, especially in Southwest Detroit is a big Latino community.
Right.
And also in the suburbs north of Detroit is a very big Middle Eastern community, and which are they're and also in Dearborn, which is on the west side of Detroit,
Right.
the suburbs there, you know, big Middle Eastern community. And so they really took to the freestyle music.
Yeah, it's very dramatic sounding,
Yeah.
for sure. So let's talk a little bit about some of the DJs outside of Detroit that really caught your ear. I did a little bit of research for this interview, and I know that you were really into Yo MTV Raps. It hit you at a time when you were very open to music. Talk a little bit about that period and some of the DJs and your experiences from that television show that was on MTV in the late 80s.
It's that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get into DJing, because like, you know, the early hip hop videos, they all had a DJ, right? And scratching, and that was like a part of hip hop, you know, unlike today. You know, that was
Forgotten part of hip hop. Yeah.
Yeah, almost every, you know, rapper had his DJ in the background, you know. And at this time, I didn't understand what he was doing, what they were doing. I just thought all the beats and the scratches and everything came from the DJ setup. I didn't get it, you know. But I was just like fascinated with. I didn't care who was rapping. I kept watching what the guy was doing in the background for the beats, and I really thought that the scratching was cool and stuff. And then I got like turned on to even I remember Yo MTV Raps did an actual segment on DJs and battle DJs, and they showed like Rock Raider and Jazzy Jeff and a few people. I forgot who was on the show back then, but that was kind of what kind of did it for me. And then I started. I actually found VHS tapes of old DMC battles. I actually found, you know, and I bought them.
Sure.
And right then and there, it got me. You know,
DJ Cheese and people like that.
Like DJ Rectangle and Rock Raider was probably like
the body tricks. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the body trick because he was like doing. I mean, you could just watch this guy, you know, and like
even the look on his face was
what
cool.
He was playing. It wasn't even sound, and he was like watching him, like, geez, like he's turning around and doing all the stuff with his mouth and with his elbows, and I mean, it was actually there was showmanship, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what really got me. So when I started DJing, I didn't even know how to mix two records together. That's all I did was practice scratching and practice. And once I got a few routines down, then I kept like trying to repeat a word. You know, I would do it really slow, and then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. You got to put a sticker on there, so that shows where the mark is. You know, and then so then I would do that and learn that, and then next thing you know, I just learned how to do it really fast, and then I started like trying to emulate like Rock Raider tricks and started doing my own tricks, and you know, and that's what really got me. You know, like when I started DJing, it wasn't even about techno or Ghettotech or electro. It was about hip hop battle DJing. You know, doing like a 3-minute set. You know, and just shredding someone. You know. Like,
at what point did you have the confidence to go out there and do all those tricks in front of somebody? And what was that venue?
It was house parties at first. I started when I was 15. And so the good thing is like the first year and a half, you know, like a lot of those tricks are really sloppy. But when you're doing it at a house party and no one really, I was literally the only DJ that everyone knew, you know, like when they saw it in person, they didn't even know how perfect or unperfect it was. You know what I'm saying? When they do it, everyone's just like, wow, look at that, you know, and like, you know, and now and then I think back then, I'm like, God, it was so sloppy. It was, you know, but like, you know, it was just growing pains, you know, it was good, you know. No. So it was house parties, and like the first gig I actually got was when I was 15 as well. It was actually at a teen club, and it was called Jams, and it was at a place. It was at this water park called Four Bears Water Park, and is in the suburbs of Detroit. And the cool thing is, every Friday and Saturday they had between like 900 people, and you know, on Fridays they do around 700. Saturdays they do around 900 people. I mean, it was packed, you know. And I'm 15 years old, and I just started, you know, I was already going there. And then when I started DJing, I remember that they let go one of the DJs, and you know, I met the manager. I'm like, yeah, I DJ, I could DJ. And, you know, I guess he thought it was cool because, well, let's get this young kid that's going to invite all his friends, you know,
Right.
from school. And yeah, it was just, and then that was when I learned really quick. It was like that week, I'm like, wait a second, I can't just scratch in a club now. I gotta go get some records. And then so
I gotta rock this party.
Yeah, so I had to get some more up tempo, we'll call them, you know, records to dance to instead of hip hop breakbeat stuff, you know. And so yeah, so and I learned really quick. Luckily I knew the songs, and you know, I wasn't the best beat mixer at that time because I had my stuff for maybe 6-7 months, and that's all I did was practice scratching 8 hours a day for 5 months of those, you know. So so I learned really quick, but you know, luckily, you know, the crowd I was playing for didn't really know the difference if I like messed up or not, you know.
They just wanted to hear the songs they liked.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean,
so what
kids, you know,
what was the battle scene and the DMC scene in Detroit when you were coming up? What was that like?
There wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of it in Detroit. You know, there's a few DJs. I remember guys like 12 Tech Mob. There's a guy named Len Swan was really good, and Daddy Riff, and a guy named DJ Shotgun. And I remember the first time I saw DJ Shotgun was at a DJ battle in like a Holiday Inn hotel. It was in a ballroom, and I saw him. And this is like a year after I started DJing, and he was just so good to me. I'm just like, wow. I was like, hopefully one day I could get like him. And you know, there wasn't like a lot of battles though. It wasn't like a really big DJ battle city, you know.
So it wasn't like San Francisco
I kind
or
of watched
Oakland.
more tapes and went to more battles and saw more battles outside of Detroit, you know. I remember DMC, they, in conjunction with Winter Music Conference, like years ago, I think it was DMC, like they did a DJ battle, and I actually entered it, and I placed third. It was out of 72 people. I was like 17 at the time.
Right.
I think it was DMC, and with the Winter Music Conference every year, you know, they were doing that every year in Miami for a while. And
Sure.
yeah, I remember I placed third. It was like out of like 72, 73 people.
Do you remember your first DJ setup? Do you
Yeah.
remember what kind of mixer? Were you rocking a Gemini or a Newmark, or
I had a realistic mixer from Radio Shack.
Okay.
You remember? Do you know what Radio Shack is? Do you have?
I certainly do.
Did you have?
Oh yeah, we had them in Georgia for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Whenever I'm out of cables, you know, you'd go to Radio Shack.
So you remember their brand, right? Remember?
Yeah, realistic, exactly. Yeah.
So I had that and 2 belt-driven turntables, like stereo system turntables, right? And then I met, which turned to be one of my best friends, one of my partners for my record label, a mentor and everything. I met DJ Dick, and he, at that time, he was playing on the top 40 station, which was 96.3 in the 90s. And he was the one playing all the Miami bass music, because in the early 90s, Miami bass was really big in Detroit, all the booty stuff, 2 Live Crew and all that kind of stuff.
That was even on MTV a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that Miami bass stuff was really big in Detroit, and he was the guy that was playing all that stuff on the radio. He would do the Hour Mix Show, and I was always listening to him. And then when I met him, he was the one that told me, and this is like when I was 15, you know, he's the one that told me, like, no, you got to get, you know, Technique 1200 turntables. And they're like $500-600 each. I'm like, I'm 15. I don't have a job. I'm like, I was like, my mom and dad aren't gonna buy this for me. I was like, so then he calls me. He goes, Jeff's selling a set of turntables, which Jeff Mills, the Wizard. And I'm like, okay, the Wizard. He's like, yeah, and he was friends with him at the time, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know him, so I was like, can you grab those turntables for me? Because they'll probably give you a better price than me, and then I'll get them. I'll pay you for them, So yeah, I forgot what he did. It was so long ago. I forgot what he did.
Right.
Long story short, he got the turntables, and I bought them off him, and I still have that pair, and it literally says property at WJLB like stenciled on it, the radio station that Jeff played at, and I still have them, and they work perfect. They were tanks. I'm talking like 30 years later. They're tanks.
Yeah.
Only thing I had to do with these things is change the RCA cords.
Yeah, perfectly made machines. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I modified them now, and I got these green lights coming out of them, and I mean, I still can't believe they're the same pair that I've had, And
yeah, for sure.
I've always kept them.
So let's move into the Ghettotech genre and where that came from, how you became aware of it. First of all, for the handful of people who may not understand the genre and know what the genre, give a little thumbnail of Ghettotech. How would you describe it?
What I tell everyone is, if you take, early Miami bass records and put it in a pot with techno and house records and mixed it and took little bits and pieces from each genre that you like and infuse it in one track. That's literally all I did.
But it's a very DJ driven genre. I mean, you have to be busy on the turntables.
Yeah, so Ghettotech is really really misunderstood, and it's crazy how people that don't know how they misunderstand it and how long it's been around, So to me, I don't call Ghettotech a genre. To me it's a culture. And the reason why I say that is because it's the only style of DJing where you're mixing techno and house records and booty records, and you're taking like different styles and putting it into one, so it creates one vibe, and it's kind of the only style of dance music that actually really incorporates a lot of beat juggling, scratching, a lot of turntable stuff, where most genres of dance music don't do that, because a lot of times that'll stop the dance floor, right? So yeah. Also Ghettotech is like, it has its own culture. When I say that, like, there's actually guys that dance to and girls, there's a scene that dances to this music, and they do a dance called a jit. It's kind of like a footwork style of dance, like a juke in Chicago. They juke in Chicago, they jit in Detroit. And and once again, it's a dance that is a part of this music. It all goes hand in hand, where I don't know any other kinds of dance music that have their own dedicated styles of footwork dancing to it,
Right. And I really got an education on that at the Movement Show. Every time I came over to see your stage, it was a completely different audience.
Yeah.
From Kevin's audience or Derek's audience, or any of the techno guys they bring in from Europe. It's a Detroit party in the middle of the day, and everybody's doing their dances, and it's completely off the chain.
And it's crazy because, like, to me, it's like the hypest time during the day at that festival, I mean, it really is, because not only, I don't mean like is the amount of people attending, I just mean like, there's the energy, real, like, kind of culture going on, and there's also a real, everyone's just having good, clean fun. They're not taking it too serious. Where I think some people take certain kinds of like techno or house like way too serious, and they just don't know to kind of kick back and let's go have that house party style fun, And that's what this music and this whole culture does, is that it brings a lot of things together, a lot of different kinds of people, a lot of different genres together all in one,
Well, that's what I love about your stage at Movement. It feels in a lot of ways like the most Detroitist place you could ever be. because
Right.
it is a mixture. It's not everybody wearing their techno uniform. You know, it's not full of hipsters. It's not people trying to be something they're not. They're just there for the music
A
and
little
they're
bit of
sweating it
everybody.
out. Yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit of everything. Talk a little bit about how you got into that culture and into that scene and what drew you into making that kind of music.
Well, kind of like when I said I kind of got forced to play some dance records at the teen club. Well, that a lot of those dance records were early Miami-based records, and I went and grabbed a handful of the early of the more popular Detroit techno records that you were kind of hearing in the mix shows and stuff on the radio. And so when I started, I noticed when I would play 2 or 3 like techno records in a row with no words. Now, mind you, this is like I'm playing for kids, you know, at a teen club, so they didn't really comprehend it, you know. So they liked the music, but I noticed when you play 2 or 3 songs like that in a row with we'll call it with no words, that I would lose the crowd a little bit. So then I started sandwiching like a Miami-based record with a techno record, then a Miami-based record and a techno, then, you know, then a Kraftwerk record and a Prince record, back to Two Live Crew, you know, and it kind of kept their energy and it kind of kept their attention. And, you know, because some of these records were just too deep for kids, you know, and they didn't get it, you know, and so that's kind of how like for me, like how I started playing, and we'll call it like a Ghettotech set now. It's just kind of this is my personal experience on how I started doing it. And so then when I was 17, and, you know, at this time I was already friends with DJ Dig, he already had a studio in his basement. And I mean, I would go there. I was just like fascinated. You know, I never like been in a recording studio before, right? And like I'm just like fascinated by everything in there. And like I really wanted to learn how to make tracks and make beats. And, you know, he had an SP 1200 and a Kai S950 sampler. And so he showed me how to use the actual 1200 and S950 sampler. But I'm one of those guys where, like, if you show me something, I don't want to keep bugging you. Wait, how do I do this again? Because I feel like I'm bothering you, right?
Mm.
So I literally took a notepad and wrote step by step how to record a sample in the sampler, how to truncate it, how to assign it to a key, how to then play a pattern on the SP1200. And, you know, so I wrote it all down, and I learned most of it really fast that way. And then while I was learning this, Rick wanted to put together this group. He had an idea for a track that we did, and it was called Drive That Thing. And it literally came on the radio the month I graduated high school.
Mm.
So it was just crazy because being in high school and actually having a song on the radio was like the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Big man on
the radio
campus.
was so big, you might as well be on MTV yourself, you know? So so I helped him get together this crew, and we did this song called Drive That Thing by Bass Association. Well, at the time I was still learning how to do the tracks, and so while Drive That Thing came out, I mean, it hit all over 4 different radio stations, not only the mix shows, but literally in top during the day for rotation at the stations. I mean, it was like a pop kind of Miami bass style record. It was really big. And even Bellmark Records, which is they put out Tag Team, Whoop There It Is.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to sign this record, and the song sampled Earth, Wind and Fire, and we couldn't clear the sample, so the deal was dead. But I thought we had a record deal before I even graduated high school. It was crazy, you know.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit about playing the parties when after your record broke.
Well, I was doing 2 kinds of parties. So I'm 17 now, you know, and so I'm kind of like leaving the teen club alone, because now I'm literally walking into other bars and I'm not even old enough to get into them, and no one's IDing me or anything, because I already had a name like around Detroit to where like people didn't even realize I wasn't even 18 yet. And so it was the summer after I graduated high school. I'm already walking into bars. I'm doing we have a song on the radio. People are treating me like I'm a lot older, you know? And so then I started DJing at a lot of different clubs and bars from downtown to the suburbs and everything. And then, you know, after a year of that, you know, we kind of started a different label, which was more Ghettotech kind of stuff, you know, and which was Twilight 76 Records. And when my first solo record came, the first release we did was a solo record. When that came out, I started getting invited to do a lot of warehouse parties, like kind of Detroit rave parties, you know, because now it's the stuff, the Ghettotech stuff was a lot more darker and more underground than what the Bass Association stuff was. The Bass Association stuff literally had like chorus and raps, and I mean, it's a full blown song, you know, like where the Ghettotech stuff I was doing, you know, had barely any lyrics, and, you know, so it's considered way more underground and it's like deeper. So then I started getting asked to do a lot of these warehouse parties. And actually the first party I did, my partner, Brian Gillespie, used to throw these warehouse parties at the old Packard plant in Detroit. And the place was like legendary, you know, for these parties. And that was literally the first rave party I did. And when I got on, like, they went ape shit. They went crazy. It was a good feeling for sure. So I was 17 at the time. So I started after that. I would do like regular bars and nightclubs.
So how did you see that? Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So I would do like regular bars and nightclubs, and right after that, I'd leave and then go DJ a bunch of rave parties every Friday and Saturday. I was kind of doing double headers every night. So, and they were literally like two different types of crowds, you know, like a bar crowd and then like a, you know, a rave crowd, you know, techno underground crowd, you know, so it was cool.
So how did the scene evolve?
What's that?
How did the scene evolve? I know I heard an interview with you the other day where you said a lot of, at one point, the music didn't really evolve a lot and you wanted to see some other types of music introduced to the scene.
To like the underground parties?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I felt like, well, I can't say it didn't evolve, because it did, because like some of these promoters are actually bringing in hip hop acts too now at the time, and you know, I just thought it was cool because like me personally speaking, if I heard like 8 hours of just techno music and or 8 hours of any genre of music, I would just I blow my brains out. I can't do it. I can't do like 8 hours, and that's just my ADD kicking in. But I've always been like a big advocate of like different, you know, let's have a house techno act, let's do Ghettotech, let's do a hip hop, let's go back to techno, you know, like I've always been like that. And there's a few promoters that were actually doing parties like that, which was really cool. But it took a while to get to that point.
And let's talk a little bit about your gear evolution of what you were bringing to the parties at the beginning and what you're using now, DJ wise.
Gear, it hasn't really changed a lot. You know, I would always, you know, every one of my sets they had to have 1200s. You know, and the only thing that really changed, because I'm still like, when I do like a Ghettotech set, I can't play on CDJs or a controller, and it's got to be turntables, because like that's how you get that sound, you know. Like CDJs, yeah, you could scratch on them, but you don't get that feel. Like, and when you don't get that feel, you also don't get that certain sound when it comes to like beat juggling and stuff like that. So I always still use 1200s or 1210s now. The only thing that's really changed is the mixer, because before I used to have like a Gemini battle mixer, then it was like a DMC mixer, the DMC battle mixer, and you know, then it was the Vestex, and you know, and then now I'm using a Pioneer DJM S9, which I love. Before that I had a Rain, the Serato, the first Serato mixer, the 57. So that's really the only thing that changed for me was the mixer. And it's crazy because when I would play overseas, this would be in my rider, and I would have promoters call us like, we can't get this mixer here. No one uses this mixer, because they all just would use like a Pioneer 900 or something. I'm like, well, I need a battle mixer. You know, if you want me to do the set, I have, So it got to the point where I would have to bring my own mixer in a flight case. And it was like so annoying, but you know, I had to do it to make it happen, you know? But yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. Like how certain places in Europe could not get these mixers at the time. And I'm like, this mixer's been out for a year already. Well, like, what do you mean? They don't have any there? And there's no places that rented them or anything like that. I'm like, why don't you just buy it and return it?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah.
So you said also in another interview that wherever you go to play, you still have a very competitive edge
Yeah.
to yourself. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that and how that motivates you when you're playing a gig.
I have a very short attention span, right? And I'm always, when it comes to anything, I have a very short attention span. So that's one of the reasons how I, you know, like when I'll do a Ghettotech set, I'll do 60 to 70 records in an hour. You know, I'm just like bam, 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 you know, just because like to me, I'm just, they're tools and stuff. And like, so when I go to different parties and I'm not playing and I'm like listening to the DJ, and it's not even like a diss, it's almost like just my personal taste and kind of like my ADD kicking in, you know, I'm like, I just, I get bored really quick. Even when I see like a scratch DJ or something, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, that's awesome. But then after 15 minutes, I just get bored. And so and a lot of times when I play parties, like especially overseas, like, you know, being like the only Ghettotech DJ at a party, I want to make sure whatever I do stands out, meaning that, you know, I'm not trying to do something more popular like techno or house music. You know, I'm not trying to sound like everyone else. I want my own identity. So when I start playing, I come out swinging because I want you to forget about the last guy you just heard, you know, and so I'll do immediately like some tricks or something just to not only get your ears, but to get you now to visually watch me, because most of the time the DJs that were playing before and after me were just kind of blending songs together, and nothing wrong with that at all. This is just me, like I said. And like, so I just want to do something to give you something to visually watch, you know. It's almost like kind of like what Rock Raider did for me. You know, I want to give that to other people in this set. So I would always start out my sets with like, I would just come hard as hell. I would do some like a lot of tricks, and then all of a sudden I throw on a record that's 150 BPMs and start cutting over it. And like a lot of times overseas, no one has seen that before, you know. And so I was just like wowing people immediately. So and that's how I would get them, and then they would pay attention. And then the DJ after me, I would always make sure the last 5 minutes of my set, I wanted to do something to make sure the DJ after me didn't even want to get on, you know. And it's just like it's a competitive nature in me, you know. And so and I managed to do that a lot, because I've actually had people say I didn't even want to follow that, but I had to be on. So
no, that's great. So what was it like to take Ghettotech to other countries? I know that a lot of the other countries fetishize a lot of things, a lot of music from America. What were some of the bigger markets that you played that really enjoyed your kind of music and your approach to the music?
God, it's crazy. Like Australia was like really good, really big into it for a while. There's still a few artists doing it. Party Boy 69, he's one of the big guys out there right now. And Brazil, like the first time I played Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, was live on MTV. It was like an electronic music show, and it was like this big club, big stage, and the whole thing is live on MTV. It was crazy. And I'm like, wait, can I play swearing? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. And like, I mean, it was crazy how Brazil, I mean, I must have went back to Australia and Brazil, you know, 15, 20 times. Belgium is really big in Europe. Belgium has been really big in France. Parts of Ireland has always had a big love for this music.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah. I mean, there's a store called Rub-a-Dub in Scotland, and Scotland or Ireland? Glasgow, Scotland. Yeah.
Yep, Scotland.
Yeah, Scotland. I was having a brain fart. Yeah. So yeah, you know, they've always been into it really big. Place like Clone Records out of Rotterdam, they do all my vinyl distribution now exclusively, and you know, they've always had a big love for our music in Rotterdam, and that's about an hour and a half drive from Amsterdam.
Sure.
So Yeah, it's just been crazy. I mean, I played in China, Spain, China, Japan, Spain. I played in every country in Europe except Albania and Greece. Make a long story short.
Okay.
So
So you got a lot of frequent flyer miles. That's great.
yeah, like and then what was really big, I was surprised. I did a set for Boiler Room in St. Petersburg, Russia,
Yeah, I watched that.
and they went crazy. I mean, it was crazy, and it that was insane because that actually worked to my advantage. So there was actually it's called the I think it's called Present Perfect Festival. I think that was the name of it.
Mhm.
They had an outdoor stage and an indoor stage. Right before I got on, it started raining at the outdoor stage. So all these people were coming inside, and next thing you know, this place that had a couple thousand people had like 5,000 people all squished together, and it was so hot and muggy in there too. I mean, there was just like my records were just wet. I had to take towels. The humidity was insane. But I mean, they loved it. They went crazy over it, you know.
That-
So I love going to countries for the first time when they never heard this music, and like just wowing people. I love getting that response.
Yeah, and the music, honestly, I've only really heard Ghettotech in Detroit and in Miami, and those are the only places I've ever really heard it. What
Mhm.
places in the States do you do well in?
Well, Chicago is really big, but they have ghetto house music. So at the same time Ghettotech was evolving, it was literally by coincidence evolving in Chicago, but coming from their house influences, from the house music that came from Chicago. So Chicago has a really big market. Um, Baltimore was even doing. They have they have a B-more scene,
Yep.
and what people don't realize is all that early Baltimore stuff was like literally Baltimore ghetto music. That is just Baltimore version of Ghettotech. That's all it was. And so they had their own thing going. So those are the places really in the States. I mean, recently though, the States have just like, unless it's something really commercial, and it's states are different now to me.
For sure.
Yeah.
I want to go back a minute because we still got a few minutes to fill here. I want to go back and talk a little bit about movement and that festival and what it means to you. I know a lot of people get to see you for the first time at that show. And you, I think, put together some of the stages sometimes, correct?
Um, I helped them before the years ago. I would help them put together 5, 6 artists, and we play like back to back, um, and then they kind of wanted to change because their sponsorships per state,
Right. Yeah, it's a long
things
story.
change
Yeah.
and things evolve and politics happen and
Yep. Yep.
yada yada. So they've always managed to have me for sure every year, which is great. Um, um, I really like. I have more fun at movement than any other festival I've done. Just because it's a hometown thing, and plus, when I do play like what you witnessed, like the whole culture comes out.
Right.
The people come out, the jitters come out. I can go to another festival overseas or something and play, and you won't see a group of jitters playing because they don't live there. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So even though they still have appreciation, people would have appreciation for the music. It's just the whole culture isn't there to me like it is Detroit.
Yeah,
And
everybody knows you. Everybody knows the MC. Everybody knows the dancers. It seems like everybody knows everybody,
yeah,
and it's just the energy is just crazy. And it, like I said before, it's usually done during the daytime, so
yeah,
it
yeah.
makes it a
I
little
actually
wilder.
complained about that. I complained about that to Chuck Flass before. He's the one that books all the DJs and
Packs the house,
sets the
yeah.
times together. I'm like, why do you always have me play at 3 in the afternoon, man? I was like, why can't I ever play later? I had 8 new EPs come out. I have all this music coming out. I have this, and half these guys you got playing later, they don't have as much music coming out as me, blah, blah, blah. I like bitch at
Right.
him. And then he's like, he's like, you're the only stage that gets packed during the day.
It's true.
And he's like, I need you during the day because of that. I'm like, all right, fine. So he's like killing me with flattery. I'm like, okay, stop. So
But it
Yeah,
does
so
bring something special to the festival, I gotta say, from an outsider's perspective.
yeah, I agree. You know, I mean, people, I think it's cooler too because during the day you could see the dancers like really going off. I mean,
Yes.
for people to see like a group of like some of the best jitters together doing dances is it's like people are in awe when they see that when they've never seen it before because these guys are really good, you know.
They get off. And
And
also the backdrop is so incredible. You're right there on the Detroit River. You can look across the river and there's Canada, there's Windsor, Canada. So and
yeah,
then you turn around the other direction, there's the Ren Center. It's like a picture of Detroit and you're playing very Detroit music for, Detroit people. There's a
yeah,
level of authenticity that really can't be touched.
yeah. And for me, it's like some DJs, I guess the later you go on, the more you're considered a headliner kind of thing. And like to me, it wasn't even about that. It was more of a because I don't really care about that kind of stuff. It was just more, every year I just played during the day. During the day, I'm like, come on, what's going on? And like, and then yeah, and then that's the only time I ever complained. And I'm like, can I play later, please? And when he said like, you're the only one that really gets a crowd during a day like that, I'm like, okay, I get it. I was like, you know what? It is actually cooler anyway because you could see, like I said, the dancers, and you could actually you get a better visual on than if it was dark, and at
Yeah,
night.
also the people are just starting to get their drink on. They're not nearly as messy as they are later in the day. You kind of hit it at the right spot. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
always really enjoy it and I always make a
I get
point.
to hit it before the drugs kick in.
Well, to each his own, right? So let
Yeah,
me ask you a little bit about the album, Electro Beats for Freaks. Why
yeah.
an album now?
Um, well, um, I wanted to put together a big package. The reason why I wanted to do that is because I was dropping EPs left and right, like nonstop. And it got to the point where people didn't even realize, oh, this has already been out. I'm like, yeah, aren't you paying attention? Or I mean, because we have a publicist working all our stuff in it, so it gets out there, and people didn't. I just think a lot of music now goes over people's heads because so much shit comes out, right?
Yep.
So I had about 12, it was like 12, 13 tracks. So the album is 44 tracks. I had like 12 or 13 I already did. I had a bunch of new ones already done. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a few more. And I want to put together a massive album, like 40, 50 tracks. Because when people see that, it stands out. Like, whoa, holy shit, that many songs, really? And so,
Yeah, that's why we did this story on you in the latest issue of DJ
yeah.
Times. It's like now we got something to talk about.
Yeah, so I wanted to do something that no one else is doing because once again, I've always liked to create my own identity, whether it's with this music or whether it's the way I DJ or just even the way I release music now. I just don't want to do anything the same that everyone else is doing anymore. So I wanted to drop this big bomb, right? But then also I was thinking about it when I dropped this album. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do a live mix, but I'm going to almost like mix. I mixed it together in Ableton. So I wanted to create like a ride on the album. I was like, and I'll skip through the tracks. So the beginning of each track, you can skip through the songs if you're like listening to it. So,
Cue it
you're not
up.
stuck
Yeah.
because the whole album is an hour, 57 minutes, I think. And so you're not stuck listening to a 2-hour album. And then I wanted to do it so all these new tracks were in one place, not on different DJs mixes and all that stuff. I wanted to do something where the first time you heard all these tracks was in one place before I released it to any DJs or anything like that. And then I was like, you know what I'll do is that after we release the album, let's drop an EP every 3 weeks off the album that would have 4 or 5 tracks. And then the tracks would be the full length tracks now for the DJs. It would have instrumentals, acapellas, BPM transitions and stuff like that. So the EPs, in my opinion, are more like the DJ packs, and the album, which came out was out for a month and a half before we started dropping the EPs. So I wanted all the attention to go on the album first before other DJs played it, because in my opinion, things are changing, right? So, in my opinion, unless it's like a handful of certain DJs that'll actually play a song, to put it on a lot of people's radar. There's only a handful of guys that'll do that. So any other DJ is like really playing your records in their mixes. A lot of people don't they don't really give the artist the credit, or they won't do a track list or something like that. So a lot of people might not know, like, if another DJ is playing my record, that this is my track, where I kind of get. So I kind of wanted to do something where just all of the attention was on one thing first. I didn't really care about any DJs playing the songs.
Yeah, there's just so much music out there. I mean, as a magazine editor and someone who runs a website, you can't imagine how many, oh, here's the latest single from DJ so-and-so. But there's not that many albums out there. So,
no.
We like to kind of pay attention to artists who are putting out a little more effort and doing something a little different.
And I think
this definitely caught our attention.
Good. That actually makes me feel good, because actually everything I planned, you just confirmed I planned it right then. So, I also think too, it's a lot of people, I don't want to call it lazy, but I think a lot of people are just content. Oh, I'll just put out one record here or there. I'll put out 3 songs a year, and just to keep my name out. And I don't know. Plus, I love to live in a studio now, especially during the pandemic. Like, if it wasn't for music, I don't know what I'd be doing, because like I own a couple nightclubs in Detroit. Those have been closed almost for a year now, so a big part of my business hasn't been open for a year. So if it wasn't for music, that kept my sanity. It really did. And the crazy thing is, I actually have the next album complete already done, which is 48 songs. The next album is already done, and then the following album after that is halfway done. So I did 140 some songs since March.
Yeah, we got into some of your process in the magazine story, but give us an abbreviated version of your process, and maybe a couple of your favorite pieces of hardware and software that you're using to make your music.
I do everything on Ableton. That's my main brain. And it was crazy. So my old studio, I had what was it? It was like 23, 24 different vintage analog synths, 808, 909, 306. I had all of them. And I got sick of all of them. I don't know what it is. Once again, it's like my ADD kicking in. And this is when, like, at first when software came out, I wasn't a fan of it at all. I mean, this sounds like shit. It sounds too tinny, doesn't sound real. And then software got really good now, over the past year. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I want to sell half my studio and just get a lot of new software and see how I like that. And if I don't like it, I'll just buy some hardware again, So I started buying the software, and there's a lot of stuff I love from it. But then I sold my MPC 3000, and I got the machine, Machine Studio by Native Instruments. Yeah. And not only did that do everything that MPC does, but then it has endless sounds, and they're good sounds. A lot of times you buy sound packs and they suck, but I mean, these are really good fat sounds, and really, and then so I started getting and I actually designed one of the drum kits for the I machine. Is called Dirty Knock for Native Instruments. So then they started hooking me up for free with all the sound packs and everything, and they came with Machine Studio, and I so that was probably one of my favorite pieces of gear for a long time. But then I started missing twisting knobs again. And
did you keep your 303?
No, sold it. I'm glad. That was the best thing I ever did. I'll explain why. I actually did a post yesterday for 303 Day. Right. And I got the new Behringer clone, the 303 clone. Behringer started making all of these older synths. And having a regular 303 and then having the Behringer, they do exactly the same thing. They sound exactly the same. They program exactly the same. But the Behringer has trigger outs, has a distortion knob, is USB, and it's $120 when a Roland 303 used is between $2,000 and $3,000 now.
Right, and it's 30
And
years old or whatever.
yeah, and it's insane to me why you would buy a Roland 303 just because it's the original unit instead of just using something that's a lot more affordable, has more function, and sounds exactly the same and programs exactly the same. So yeah,
But it
so
makes for a great, but it makes for a great Instagram post.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I said, I even wrote, I was like, yeah, to all the TB 303 snobs. Yes, I realize this is not the real 303, but I used to have one, so I paid my dues, so I'm allowed to talk about it. and
So, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so so I started just buying a lot more modular stuff again, and I literally just got the Behringer Odyssey today. That just came in. I bought a Mo grandmother. I got so many stuff. I got the Behringer 808. That's another thing. I have the Behringer 808, the RD8, and I used to have the Roland 808. And once again, the RD8 sounds exactly the same, and there's more features on it to edit sounds. Like there's a little filter on it, and you can make a snare drum sound like 30 different snares just off of twisting two knobs. It's crazy. So yeah, I got that, and I got the reissue of the Roland 606, which is better than the original 606, and yeah, so I'm into all these reissues, man. They're better.
That's awesome. Before we wrap it up, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of your entrepreneurial spirit. I know you had mentioned that you had some venues, some bars that you'd opened. You know, I read that you were doing Christmas roller skating parties. You know,
Yeah.
in the past few years, pretty much every DJ that I've ever talked to, whoever really kind of made it, had talent, but he or she also had hustle, and that really impressed me the first time I interviewed Jam Master Jay. That he was all about throwing parties before he got that, before he became a big star. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, you're a guy who never seems to slow down.
No, I get bored really easy. Once again, I bring it back to my ADD. I can't sit around. I always got to be doing something.
But you're never going to go broke.
No, see, one thing. Okay, the reality is, and let's just be real. There's only a handful of techno and house DJs that are going to completely be rich and never pay bills again off of DJing and making records, right?
Yep.
And so, I do Ghettotech music because it's me. Yes, we sell records, we make money. We've done big licensing deals. We've done, so luckily it's been a profitable business. But at the other, on the other side of the coin, it's also not a genre that's I'm going to be getting benefits from, 20 years from now. And so and just because I've DJ'd early and thrown events early, it got to the point where to me, I had two different kinds of DJing. I would do DJing as a job for money. Then I would do DJing as an artist, which is my heart, which is music I love. So kind of going back to how I was explaining, I would do a bar, then I go do a warehouse party. Well, the bar was just a job. I'm playing hip hop, this, that, everything, top 40 music, whatever. And I was just making money, and at the time you're 21, 22 years old, making $500-600 a night, then that's good money. Right. So, but then I will go to the rave party and then I get to play my own shit, my own records, my music that I love, that I was passionate about. So to me, it wasn't about money. It was about doing what I love. And so, just because, since high school, I've always been DJing or throwing events or something, it got to the point where I would be at some of these clubs or parties and the manager, the owner, or something, just complete dipshits that they didn't know how to run their own business. And, I mean, we've all been through that. And it got to the point where I'm just like, why am I bringing all of these people? Why am I playing music? Why am I doing this? And then I'm making this amount of money. I go, I might as well own the fucking place.
Right.
So my mentality changed, and I got sick of telling some manager, some club owner what to do. And then they wouldn't want to listen to me out of ego because it was their place, but they're not, but then they failed, and if they would have did a lot of things if they would have listened to me a lot more, then maybe they'd still be around, I mean, just because you have money and you could open a club, that doesn't mean you know the business. It doesn't mean, you know, there's a science to
Or that
it.
you understand the culture
The
by
culture,
throwing
the
events.
promoting, the marketing, the everything from behind the bar, your inventory, everything. You got to be on top of all of it, you know? And so yeah, so it got to the point where some opportunities came my way, and you know, I invested in a rooftop club called 350 Terrace, which is it's the roof of we have a theater in Detroit called the Music Hall, which has been around since I think 1928. It's like a historic theater, and it's pretty much in its original state. And when you walk in, it's like vintage and brand new. It's beautiful. And so we're the roof of that, and it's 10,000 square feet, 7 floors up in the middle of downtown Detroit. I have yet to go to a bigger rooftop in different cities and states and stuff like that. So that came about, and we got really successful really fast. And then all of a sudden, just I'm like, okay, well, this is seasonal though. So, you know, being in Detroit, and it was only outside, and come September, end of September, it was getting chilly up there, you know.
Right.
So we had to close for the season. And then another opportunity came our way where this someone hit us up and said, hey, you want to move your crowd over here? And is a building about a 5-minute walk away from 350 Terrace. And so we did a nightclub called the Annex, and I'm like, yeah, we can move it. And we put money in, and the Annex was supposed to only be seasonal. We were supposed to just rotate the crowds, and then the Annex just got so busy year round, and you know, things happen from there. So now we're actually taking over the building that Annex is in, and we're building 2 new venues all underneath the Annex. So I'm really excited.
So when do you think Detroit's going to be running at full force again? You think by the end of the summer?
I would say middle of summer, early summer. I mean, our governor's been very tougher than most states, and things just loosened up this week. So now things are back at a 50% capacity. And you know, I think with these vaccines, whether you want to take it or not, whatever your opinion is on it, I think now, yeah, I don't want to. Yeah. I'm not political. I hate talking about COVID because politics come up. But so I just think that with vaccines out, and deaths going down, and plus so many people's already had it, they can't spread it again right away, right? So that's going to contain it. I think that will force things to open up, because whether you take a vaccine or not, whatever your personal opinion is on it, the government can't protect everyone and fuck up this economy, you know.
No, it's coming back. And also, I mean, speaking personally, I tend to believe in the science of the vaccine, but the other side of it is it's going to create a level of confidence with the general public. And we're seeing that right now. And we're certainly hoping everybody's fired up about the end of the summer. So, and we're doing our DJ Expo in Atlantic City in August. So hopefully it's ready to go then. So I want to wrap this up, but I wanted to find out what we should be looking for next from DJ Godfather. I know that you have another record in the can.
Well, we still have 5 more EPs to drop off of Electro Beats for Freaks, which all have, like I said, instrumentals, acapellas, BPM transition versions, yada yada. So we're dropping those, and once those are done, I'll have the new album ready to go immediately. It's done. I just, you know, I want to wait because we still have things to do for Electro Beats for Freaks, you know. Another reason why we're dropping these EPs again is kind of like a reminder of the tracks too, because I think when I gave people 44 tracks, it's gonna be a blur of tracks, you know what I'm saying? But when you drop an EP highlighting certain tracks, it kind of puts it back on your radar again in the press and everything. Right. So it's been working out really well. So once we do that, I'll have the next album ready to go. And the following album after that is going to be all electro. It's not Ghettotech. It's just strictly Detroit electro stuff, you know?
Okay.
Which is kind of which is one of the elements of Ghettotech, but you know, I'm like a real big electro head. So I was like, you know, I want to do something deeper and start twisting more knobs and playing with my synths more, you know?
Awesome.
So we got that, and then I got a couple EPs ready to go with Ghetto Blaster. You know, they're big tech house group, and we actually did kind of Ghettotech meets tech house tracks, which I'm really excited about. And then me and Keith Tucker, DJ K1, we actually have a couple EPs that we're gonna start releasing a series of kind of stripped down electro records called Street Beats, and it's gonna be Street Beats Volume 1, Volume 2, and so on and so forth. And it's only gonna be two tracks per EP and per vinyl. So yeah, I think we have the first two Street Beats EPs ready to go, and yeah, so myself, Keith Tucker, and Arabian Prince actually redid the song "Reckless" by Ice-T.
Right.
I did all the drum programming, all the scratches. Keith Tucker replayed the bass line, and Arabian Prince from NWA redid Ice-T's vocal, and we redid "Reckless," and it's been done for about a month already. But I want to figure out when the best time to drop that is. So I'm really excited about that one because I can't stop listening to it. It came out so good.
Awesome. Send it our way. So want to thank everybody for tuning in today on our maiden voyage here on Twitch. We greatly appreciate Brian Jeffries, DJ Godfather, coming from Detroit City. And we greatly appreciate it. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the live side again. And hopefully we'll be back in the D sooner than later.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, bud.